Speaking of you never know, again, we're here every Friday, 6 p.m. You never know who's going to show up.
Anything can happen at happy hour.
Yeah. So feel free to call in below. The link is in the description. Again, by way of our friends, AJ Caprio, Integrated Pain Management, we would like to introduce former WCW Tag Team Champion, former WCW Hardcore Champion, former WCW Cruiserweight Champion. Ladies and gentlemen, Crowbar.
Hello, everyone. Nothing. How's everybody doing?
We're doing great.
Fantastic.
We usually ask, what are you drinking? What are you thinking? So,
well, right now, first of all, I apologize for being so unkempt and unshaved. It's been a crazy work week. One of the most challenging parts of being a pro wrestler in this day and age is that all these years later, I'm a dad, I'm a physical therapist, I'm a business owner, and this week was just nuts. So what I'm drinking right now is a cup of black coffee because I have about 8 notes left that I have to write up once I finish with this. So that's what I'm thinking, and that's what I'm drinking.
Fair enough. Cheers to that. And that's the beauty of the show is you don't have to drink alcohol. You whatever you want to drink, just bring. We're just talking about
when I get home, I will be drinking alcohol. I promise. That's definitely, but that's later.
Well, I know you're a man who enjoys his red wine as well from your.
Yes, I do. Yes.
You kind of touched on it, so we wanted to ask you. What have you been up to lately? You touched upon obviously the physical therapy thing, and take us through what you've been doing.
Well, how far back do you guys want to go? So WCW ends, and I toy around with like TNA. I was there for a very brief cup of coffee. There was a company out at that time called the WWWA that did a few pay-per-views, and it featured a lot of former WWE and WCW guys and stuff like that. And then at that point in time, I was knocking on WWE's door. I had several dark matches that went pretty well. I'm actually pretty psyched. A guy on Twitter actually gained access to the dark match archive, and I got to see a few of those that I had been wanting to see. So, 20 years later, I got to see me and John Cena in Philadelphia. 20 years later, I got to see me and Rick Fuller at the Hartford Civic Center. 20 years later, I got to see me versus Mike Bell with Daphne in my corner in Philadelphia. So that was kind of cool. But nothing happened there. No job, no nothing. So there comes when a young guy asks me, what is the best advice I could give him? And I say, always make sure you have a second career. I get pissed off when I see, not pissed off, but there's so many things on YouTube, and there's a motivational speech by Arnold Schwarzenegger, or a motivational speech set to music by The Rock, or a motivational speech set to music by this famous actor. And a lot of the themes of those is you need to focus every bit of your energy into one thing. Otherwise, you're admitting that you're going to fail. And the only way you're going to succeed is if you put all your energies on this one goal. And that's easy for them to say because they made it and they're rolling in all kinds of money. But for every Rock, every Arnold, every other whatever singer, band, whatever, there's thousands and thousands of people that don't make it, or I'll come back to this. So you need to have a plan B. Very, very often I'll ask a new guy. I was in World Championship Wrestling at that time, one of the 2 largest companies on the planet for 3 years. As you said, Cruiserweight champion, tag team champion, hardcore champion. And I'll say, do you consider that successful? Would you have liked to do? Is that something that you would like to do? If you did that, would you be happy? And every single time they say, yeah, that'd be awesome. I would love to do that. I say, now, I wasn't at the top of the card. I wasn't in the bottom of the card. I was in that meaty middle there somewhere. But in no way, shape, or form did I make enough money to sustain me the rest of my life as an individual, forget a family. So very, very few people have those long extended runs where they make a whole bunch of cash, and you need something else to fall back upon. So after I was not picked up by WWE, it was great. At that time, even during, I'm all over the place. I have bad ADD. I'm so sorry. So during WCW, during WCW, when I was home from the road, I still worked in physical therapy. I kept a hand in it. So WCW ends in TNA for a little cup of coffee, WWA, WWE, or F, whatever it was at that time, dark matches. Nothing happens. So I transitioned my life from full-time wrestler, part-time physical therapist to full-time physical therapist, part-time wrestler. And I got more and more involved in the management aspect of physical therapy. I got married. I started a family. I had kids. So for many, many years, I pulled back a lot from pro wrestling. And I would wrestle sometimes once a month, sometimes once every 3, 4, 5 months or more. And my life shifted from pro wrestling, although I continued to watch it, I continued to enjoy it. I still say it to this day, on this planet, there's nobody that friggin' loves pro wrestling more than me. But I took many, many steps backwards until about, I think it was 2019. Myself, my wife, this guy that plays my bodyguard, Adam Kerr, who was a patient of mine, believe it or not. He started out as a patient of mine, and I turned him into a pro wrestler. Big dude. We debuted for Ring of Honor at Final Battle. We did Free Enterprise, the first pay-per-view of 2020, and then COVID hit. So being a physical therapist and living in New Jersey, although there were shows going on here and there, scarcely. If in New Jersey, if you went somewhere, especially out of state, and you were in front of a crowd, you had to quarantine for 2 weeks. It would have destroyed my business. So I had to stop wrestling completely. And that went on until about April of 2021. And during that time, I needed to feed my wrestling itch in some way, and I came up with these crazy promos I started doing, and it took off a little bit, and they were fun.
Yeah, I mean, talking about that, I guess that you transition into the physical therapy field, right? And there's probably some, and I got to give credit to one of our listeners here, Steven, who mentioned this. There's probably some injuries. Is there injuries that you see that kind of translate over? You know, we opened the show tonight with Rhea Ripley, got injured last week to her AC joint. And is there some common injuries that you see? And is there things that are kind of avoidable that are consistent in the wrestling industry right now?
I think today's wrestlers, this generation of wrestlers, is by far the most athletically gifted crop of wrestlers we've ever had. The moves they do, the corkscrews, the flips, they're so athletically gifted. It's on a whole nother level that was never seen before. And that's awesome. This generation of wrestlers also make a lot of bad choices, moves wise. They possess this incredible athletic ability. And with that ability, they could probably do a million and one safe things that would look really, really cool, that the crowd would really, really like. And unfortunately, they still continue to choose a lot of stuff that hurt them and hurt their opponents. It is pro wrestling. Injuries will always happen, even on the stupidest, simplest things. It could happen. But I think you increase the likelihood of injuries when you make bad choices.
No, for sure. And, kind of backtracking to obviously when you had the change, a lot happened, in your life in that following 2 years following WCW, right? In 2001, you got married, you met some people, and talk about, I know Nikki and I are both, I know we're both a wrestling couple. We met through pro wrestling and we both have a love for it. So
it's awesome.
I was saying, like, wrestling couples are my favorite, and like watching some of your stuff today, and like, how you and Dina are, like, how is it like working with her kind of like inside the ring, outside the ring? Like you guys coming out together, I think is so like her and the mask and the fan. I think it's like, whoa, like she has a fan because you guys are like making out all the time.
Little pageantry again. You know what I mean? I'm a big sucker. I love in-ring work, but I grew up watching wrestling in the 80s and the early 90s. I am a sucker for characters, for pageantry. And I think that's missing a lot in pro wrestling. I love stuff like that. When people ask me who combined character and work rate the best, I mean, my favorite wrestler of all time is Randy Savage, but he was not the best in my opinion. But he did combine pageantry and he was a phenomenal worker. Go to like mid 90s, Lord Steven Regal. Okay. Mm-hmm. He had this royal music. He wore capes. Sometimes he wore that ruffle thing that hung down. Once in a while, he wore a white wig. He had either Sir William, his attendant, or Jeeves. He had all this stuff going on. He had the faces he made. He was disgusted with the people. But when he got in that ring and the cape came off and the thing came off and the wig came off, you saw some phenomenal work rate, whoever he was wrestling with. So I try, and I'm not putting myself in the same class as Steve Regal. I know I'm not, and I'm a totally different kind of wrestler, but I really always thought that was a great way to go, where you have this ultimate wrestling pageantry and character stuff that it's very popular today. Say it makes wrestling really fun. But when all that's gone, I really try to show the people a violent, cool, fun match.
Is there anything that you maybe
sorry,
like not in this spot, like not do that sequence? Is she very like kind of like protective of you, like maybe don't do that, or she's like baby go?
Now we met, and she actually wrestled for a while. She was an independent wrestler, and I just left WCW, and I had gone down to Jim Kettner's ECWA in Delaware just to visit with some people, and she happened to be there, and the rest is history. We first met there, and then we met a few weeks later somewhere else, and then one thing led to the other. And in August, we will be married 20 years, and we will be together 23 years.
Cheers.
Cheers to that.
And the cool thing is we have so much. We love watching wrestling together. Like, I got home late last night. She had a long day at work. She's also a registered dietitian. We both had long days at work, a lot of paperwork and stuff. We got in the hot tub. There's the TV there. Like, oh, what do you want to do? She goes, oh, no, let's watch wrestling. So it was either, and you hear the opposite. I go, what do you want to do? And it's either listen to music on YouTube, watch Star Wars stuff, or Star Wars reviews on YouTube. Like right now, the Bad Batch is running, and we love Star Wars. Or we watch wrestling, and we ended up watching Saturday night's main event, the episode where they turned Macho Babyface against the Honky Tonk Man, and Hulk Hogan fought Sika, and it was just awesome. We're hanging out there, defunking a long day at work. We had some seltzers. The water was hot. We're hanging out there and just watching wrestling, and it was awesome.
Beautiful. I love that so much.
So I got to ask, as a Star Wars fan, which is your favorite?
Oh,
okay. For years, I said Empire Strikes Back, and that's a common response. That's what most people say. And then I really thought about it. I did an interview a few months ago, maybe half a year ago or so, and I changed it. And I said Return of the Jedi. And here's why. Movies aren't like they are now, where they come out one year and then shortly thereafter there's the next one. Like when the Avengers came out, boom, boom, boom. So we had Empire, and you got Luke in he got his hand cut off, Darth Vader to his father, Han Solo's frozen in carbonite, and that was all awesome stuff. You had the walkers, you had Yoda and all this. But I thought Jedi, when you think back, and I put myself in my mind as a child. There were so many payoffs. When I grew up, it wasn't the Star Wars special edition. There was no Jabba the Hutt in Episode 4. There was no Jabba the Hutt in that hangar during Star Wars. So you heard about this Jabba the Hutt through Star Wars and Empire. You knew he was a bad dude, but you never saw him. And you get to see him for the first time in Jedi. And I remember as a kid, whoa, this giant space slug is awesome. And one of the most memorable parts of Star Wars for me was the cantina. So you got Jabba's palace, which is very similar to the cantina with all these cool looking freaky aliens. And I love that. You got a rancor down there. You got a monster. And that was really cool. You see the Emperor in the flesh for the first time. The Emperor shooting lightning out of his fingers, which you've never seen before at that time, which was cool. You find out Luke and Leia are brother and sister, which is weird because they kissed in the last movie. Darth Vader turns good and takes off his helmet. Come on. And ultimately, at least you thought, the good guys defeated the bad guys for good. So when I think back and I connect myself to the feelings attached to Return of the Jedi, I have to call that my favorite one, even over Empire Strikes Back.
That's fair.
And that's why.
No, like, right now.
I know. You can tell. You can tell.
Talk Star Wars.
I know.
I know it's a wrestling podcast, but I'm like, let's talk Star Wars.
So bring it back to wrestling.
Okay.
No.
I digress.
I know. I can just leave you two alone all night.
Bye, Nick.
So I could talk Star Wars all night. We could just make this a whole Star Wars episode and really piss your fans off.
Unbelievable. But yeah, so kind of getting back to it. So going into like we were talking about moves earlier, right? And like safe moves, things like that. So I looked at, your finisher, the mind bender, if you're assuming you're still using it today, because the last couple matches I saw you're using a lot of different variations, a lot of hardcore stuff. But I guess what's it say? To me, you were one of the first people to do that move, 20 plus years ago. And now since then we see a Hall of Famer in Beth Phoenix. And now what's projected to be, the next big thing in Jade Cargill kind of using that move. What does that, kind of meaning, knowing that, kind of you were brought that to me, at least to the limelight. I hadn't seen too many wrestlers using that finisher. So now here you are, 20 plus years later, seeing that. What does that kind of mean to you?
It's cool. I don't know. It's a relatively simple move. It's just the sit down adds a lot to it. It's cool looking. It looks like you crushed a person, and it's hard to pull back the curtain, but it's super, super safe. And that's what pro wrestling needs to be. You need a safe finisher you can do to take care of yourself and your opponent as well.
No, absolutely. Nikki, you still...
I'm still on the Star Wars.
She's still in the Star Wars. Oh, man.
In case you're wondering, I hate the sequel trilogy. Hate it.
Thank you. I don't like them either.
Big, and I've tried. The Force Awakens laid some groundwork. I was interested in Poe. I thought Finn, the stormtrooper that left the Empire, was a cool idea. I liked Rey. I liked Snoke. I thought, who is this Snoke guy? And then at the beginning of The Last Jedi, started the dumpster fire.
It had potential, but it was too many.
It did.
And then it just went too far another way.
They destroyed it.
Like a Death Star.
Yes.
There's gonna be, how many Star Wars references? I feel like this is going to be like we're going to make it like one of those like drinking games where every time a Star
shit! I forgot this is a wrestling interview. I'm sorry.
No, we're having fun here. This is a blast. So, to take back, actually, as we were talking about, being safe and making safe moves, I was looking back on just in general, like your hardcore match, Starrcade 2000. You got to wrestle, your icon there, Terry Funk. How do you looking back on that match now? It was it was so at points I was like, wow, this is tough to watch because some of the chair shots you were taking.
Sure. Yep.
You came out looking so phenomenal in that match, just the beating that
Thank you.
took. But do you reflect 20 plus years later on it, differently now as, obviously as a father and just, an experienced wrestler?
It's a rough one. There are a lot of wrestlers that have come out and, years ago there was that famous lawsuit against WWE about the concussions and all this type of stuff. I was studying to be in healthcare when I first became a pro wrestler. I was going to school to be the physical therapist during ECW, and I was a physical therapist when I got involved in WCW. That being said, you don't need to be a physical therapist and you don't need to be a healthcare worker to know that probably getting whacked in the noggin with a chair shot was bad for you. I'm sorry. I'm just being honest. So years ago, we had all these guys coming forward saying that, they were forced to do that. That's all BS. As a wrestler, first of all, as any intelligent person knows, getting bludgeoned in the head with an object is not good for you. That being said, at that time, it was a fashionable thing to do. It's what the audience liked. It was getting over, and ECW was very popular, and the ECW style was eventually emulated by WCW and WWE, and that was something at the time that was over. Fans liked it. They popped for it. They talked about it. And that was just, I hate that it's a cliche thing to say. It was a sign of the times. So when I look back, if I could change it, would I? I probably would, or at least put my hand up like I do now. But I'm not going to come out and say we didn't know what we were doing. You got to be, that's an idiot thing to say. Any common person knows getting bludgeoned in the head with a hard object is not good for you. But let's go back to the match. So one of my favorite matches growing up was the New York Knockout I Quit match, Ric Flair versus Terry Funk. It really sucked me into more what I would call adult style wrestling. I grew up on the East Coast. We saw mostly WWE on cable. We saw some of the with the Southern wrestling and all that. But I remember watching that Flair versus Funk. I'm like, wow, these guys are awesome. This Terry Funk guy is nuts, and he's awesome. So I became a gigantic fan of Terry Funk and Ric Flair through that match, but Terry Funk especially. And then if you were to tell a teenage Chris Ford that one day on the last Starrcade, which is, for the people that don't know, WCW's version of WrestleMania, that I would wrestle Terry Funk in a title match, I would, no friggin' way. What are you, nuts? Off the radar and unattainable goal. So just the fact that I got to do that, it was such a huge blessing. I'm so grateful for it. And it was just a great, great time. In hindsight, if I could take back some of those chair shots to the head, I probably would. But at that time, not me or anybody else was thinking of that. It was just something that was done in pro wrestling. It was part of the pro wrestling game. In football, the helmets evolve, the rules evolve. In other sports, gear and protective equipment evolve, and wrestling has evolved, thankfully, away from that. But that's just the way it was. And, again, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse, you don't have to be a healthcare provider. You don't need to be a physical therapist. You don't need to be a neurosurgeon or a general doctor to know that being whacked in the head is not good for you. We just did it. The crowd loved it. We did it in an attempt to get our characters over. We were independent contractors doing something that we thought would help our career, and anybody that says otherwise is full of garbage.
Yeah. No,
how's that?
Yeah, I like that point. Because honestly, now with all the documentaries coming out, you see like Dark Side of the Ring and everything else. It is kind of like a blurred lines type thing. But yeah, to your point, I completely understand where you're coming from. Like, you kind of agree to do things beforehand, right? Like no one's doing it against their will, so to speak. So
because usually the wrestlers, we will call our match. When not told. Never in my career was I told, we want you to take 5 chair shots during this match. We want you to take 10 chair shots. I was never told that. It was something that was discussed between me and my opponent. And often it was ad-libbed as well. When you're out there and you're feeling the action and you called for 1 chair shot, but the people are going nuts, that 1 chair shot might turn into 3 or 4.
No, yeah. Again, the adrenaline gets pumping, right? Like it just keeps going. So I want to get into, and I want to talk about obviously what you're doing now with ISPW as well.
In this day and age, I go from where the chair to the gut and across the back. I will never whack a guy in the head with the chair. I won't take one to my own head. Once in a while, you'll see wrestlers do a chair throw, and that's, again, don't want to pull back the curtain too much, but that's way different than somebody holding it and bludgeoning you with a steel chair.
No, yeah, it's a fair point. Yeah, it's the the implementation of it, right? Like, and how you go about it.
It's all how. Yep.
So I know for a brief period of time, during post-pandemic, I guess what's 2021 considered?
I don't know. It's all
is that still considered part of the pandemic?
It's all blur.
But in 2021, you had a match on AEW Dark. What was that experience like for you? I know a lot's happened since then with them growing and things like that. What did you experience there? And what's your take on what their product has been like?
So I was off for 14 months and during COVID, and I was doing the promos. And if you watch the promos, I was talking a lot of smack as a character and being very critical of modern wrestling or young wrestling and stuff, and having all kinds of fun. And I was at my son's lacrosse game. Again, totally different life, doing daddy things. It was like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm watching my son's lacrosse game, and I get a call to go do the Super 8 for ECWA that night. And I had not been in a ring for 14 months. And I had been in the first few Super 8s. So this was really a cool experience. It was because Ricky Morton either missed his flight or the flight got canceled or something like that. So I took the call and I said, let me think. I hung up, and I'll just be totally real. I go, wow, I have not trained for this. I would love to do it, but I don't want to go out there and look like crap. And then I don't want to be a preachy guy at all. But this is the way I think. I go, the Super 8's a cool show. It would be something cool to come back with after not wrestling for 14 months. God is putting this opportunity in front of me, and it would be a shame to squander it. So I took the opportunity and had 2 great matches. The following month, I wrestled for GCW in Atlantic City versus Ricky Shane Page, and that was awesome. That's on YouTube somewhere. It's called After Hours. Huh?
I watched that this morning.
Yeah, and that finish we did without pulling back the curtain. People ask me about it a lot. If I did it, it was safe, and you're not going to know how. The light tubes, multiple light tubes. I was power bombed through about 10 light tubes on top of a guardrail.
So what you're saying is it wasn't real glass.
No, it was. There was some science going on there. I did that, and I was not cut up or anything like that. And I think I amazed a lot of the guys in the back. And I know for a fact that the technique that I used to protect myself is used by quite a bit of those deathmatch guys that were there that night. And that happens. And then we go away to Disney, and I get a text from QT Marshall saying, we're thinking about putting you on the show in September. Joey Janela would like to work with you, yada, yada, yada. So I'm in Disney a day and a half. And when you go to Disney, all bets are off. You're eating what you want. You're drinking what you want. It's
Yeah.
magical. So that screwed up my Disney trip a bit.
That meal plan. That meal plan is intense. When we went there a couple of years back, it's like you have to get 3 snacks in within like a 2-hour period.
Yes. So I ate responsibly. I did a whole lot more cardio, and that started my quest to get ready for September. And then September rolls around, and I get to wrestle with Joey in Philly and doing a show that big again after being off for 14 months and that being my third match. If you go back, I think me and Joey did a pretty good job, and that was my third match in 14 months. And I'm very proud of that. It was good. And, you know, through COVID and the promos, you're not sure what's going on. I had a great experience at ECWA. So I'm like, okay, this is cool. Match with Ricky Shane Page. I loved working him. That lit another fire under my ass a bit more. And then going to AEW and that big crowd and wrestling with Joey like that, that just made my fire even bigger. And it made me to want to continue to do it. And here I am at 53, at 50 years old and 33 years in.
Incredible.
And Ty, like the one thing I thought was really amazing as I was watching your ISPW matches is that I thought it was so unique. I don't see it doors being used as tables in matches. I thought that was so cool that you guys are starting to use like just again, like it's kind of that whole to your path. Like
well,
ECW.
I'll tell you how that popped up. The doors actually popped up. If I could be a wrestling historian, I believe because in New York, the athletic commission passed some kind of legislation where you're not allowed to use tables. So guys, they made this loophole where they started using doors. And as far as a promoter goes, doors are a lot cheaper than buying tables. So more and more people started using doors. How's that?
Learned something new tonight. Who didn't think that? Well, I thought that was going to happen, but
I know.
I didn't think it would never about doors.
I learned so much today.
And I have to say that I uniquely try to use the guardrail unlike anyone else in this business. And so I like to use the doors. I like to use the guardrail. The guardrail more than the doors just because everybody uses the doors. So I try my best to try to be as different as I can be.
Yeah, right. It's your trademark. So is there a match so far and on whether it's ISPW or on the indies that you've done the last couple of years that really stands out? I know you've wrestled with Tommy Dreamer. Talking about next week, we're gonna you're wrestling Gangrel next week.
That's gonna be so fun.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean
there's been so many great opportunities since I came back. AEW, of course, stands out. When I did New Japan the following year, that stood out. Doing the Battle Royal, although it was an easy match to wrestle in for Ric Flair's last match, that stands out. Just being there for that night was cool. But between ISPW and Outlaw Wrestling, I've had some really great matches against some really great people. Last year, I think it was. Is it last year? I lost track. See those damn Terry Funk chair shots. I dropped the leg off the top of a steel cage again, and that was kind of neat. Last week, I can't wait to see it once it's all edited and stuff. But last week I got to wrestle Speedball Mike Bailey. That was awesome. I would love to do that again. It's this building in Brooklyn that Outlaw runs. They pack them in there. It's standing room only. It's a crazy Brooklyn crowd, hipsters and college guys and random wrestling nuts, and they are loud and out of their mind. Great crowd. Very it's similar to the ECW crowds of old. And that pushes you to really go nuts and, safely, of course, and really makes you want to have a great match. But between ISPW and Outlaw Wrestling, I really can't thank them enough for all of the opportunities. Great guys that they've given me to wrestle. I never want to be the veteran where they say, let's bring in Crowbar. We'll have to find somebody to work with him that'll take it easy so, we can get a good. That's not me at all. I like being able to perform at a modern level, or what I call a modernly acceptable level. And when I'm not unable to do that anymore, I won't do it no more. I will gracefully walk away and say, I can't do this at a quality level no more, and I'm gone. And I also want to thank Battleground out of Philadelphia, who I've wrestled 3 shows for now, who has really given me the opportunity to run with this entourage idea that I've had with the bodyguard and my wife out there, and with the music and the pageantry and all this type of stuff, which Outlaw and ISPW do allow me to do. It just looks more grandiose when you have the grand stage and the monitors and the smoke and all that. That type of entrance is made for an environment like that, So all 3 of them have given me great opportunities to paint on the canvas the way that I want to at this stage of my career. It's indie wrestling. It's vacation money at the most. It's not something I'm doing for the monetary value. I'm out here because I friggin' love pro wrestling. I enjoy creating. I enjoy being able to do it with a close friend of mine, Big Adam, and my wife, which is awesome. It's a great bonding experience. My kids don't think it's so, it's old hat for them, but their kids think it's real. Their friends, rather, think it's really, really cool.
I was going to ask like, what is your, because I know you have 2 kids now, and your son's getting older, right? So he knows who dad is. So like, what's that
as he's getting, I think he appreciates it more because he knows dad's 50 and he's still doing this wild stuff and doing stuff that the guys in their earlier matches that are half my age aren't doing. So I think that impresses them. But as far as mom and dad being wrestlers, both my kids, it's always been there. It's an old hat, you know what I mean? And it's fun, like going around the house. Me and my wife laugh. They'll use the wrestling lingo like we do accidentally. You know what I mean? My son will want something. He goes, "Hey, Dad, give me that gimmick there." And I look at my wife. We just laugh, and it's just fun. Or like, "Hey, why's Mia, my daughter? Hey, why's Mia going into business for herself there?" And it's normal. But when we stop and say, "This is nuts," it's just really funny and it's cute. And but we probably are, as crazy as wrestling is, we're probably the most normal wrestling family on the planet. So
that's awesome. So we're talking with Crowbar here on the Nick Club Wrestling Happy Hour. If you're new here, to all our friends, please hit the like button, subscribe. Go ahead.
I just want to do a side note because you're Jersey, we're all Jersey. I want to get a little controversial.
Where are you guys at?
So he's originally from North Caldwell. I'm from Woodbridge, and now we live in Bridge.
Ridge or Bridge? Ridge or Bridge?
Where's my brain?
Woodridge or Woodbridge?
Woodbridge.
Woodbridge.
Bridge. Okay.
Yeah. So he's a little north. I'm a little central south. But controversy: pork roll, Taylor ham.
I've always used Taylor ham. I would always order a Taylor ham, egg, and cheese sandwich.
Same. So he's north, and I was middle, and I was Taylor ham.
But that being said, if someone offers me pork roll, egg, and cheese, I will not turn that down.
Yeah, exactly. Right? As long as it's good.
Yeah.
Call it whatever you want.
I know, we're Jersey, you're Jersey.
Yeah.
I feel like I always called it Taylor Ham, but I got
Me
used
too.
to it because
I was always Taylor Ham, and then I went to school in Trenton or Princeton, and they were like, "Oh, it's pork roll." I was like, "I don't know what pork roll is."
I think that's where it changes. Like right around there is where it changes. That's the dividing line there.
Yeah.
That's like the pork roll, Taylor Ham, Mason Dixon line there.
Basically. So I was like in both, but I like.
I think they need to label that on maps now. You know, they have the equator, and then they have the Taylor Ham pork roll line.
actually they have those maps. You ever see like some random people on wherever social media site make them where it's like North Jersey and they say this is Central Jersey?
I know.
Yes, I've seen that. Yeah.
It's a thing. It's a thing. Now that I live here.
No,
it's a
I
thing.
like in Woodbridge. They said we're Central Jersey, and I went to college in kind of Southern Jersey, and they were like, "Central doesn't exist." I'm like, "My last 18 years a lie."
I'm just looking at my hair here at the end of a long day work. I look like Doc Brown. Marty, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry.
Hey, listen. You
No.
can't say that to someone.
We're gonna
With
throw
this.
him on our DeLorean, and we're gonna gun it to 88.
Well, as long as I get hair back in this situation, I'm okay with wherever we're heading. Before we get to it, so we have some people online. So I want to let someone in if you're open to it, having some of our
Sure.
listeners chime in.
Of course, I'm open to it.
Awesome. So
Thank you.
I think I know who this is. I'm pretty sure it's a regular, but he didn't change his name, so it's welcome guest number 1. So I think it's Steven. So I'm going to say Steve. Bring him in.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Steve, it is you.
What's up, Steve?
Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Barr. I'm a fan.
Nice to meet you too.
My question is, I remember seeing your ECW debut where you were the surprise opponent that day, and that was quite the moment. You came out to Nine Inch Nails song.
Yes. Terrible Lie. Yes.
Terrible Lie. Yes. That was something to watch. I was a big ECW fan back in the day. I stayed up till 1 a.m. just to watch that on the MSG network.
Sure. I did too at that time. Yep.
Yeah. So my question is related to that. What would you? How much difference would you say was between the hardcore matches you had in WCW and what looked to be pretty much standard practice in ECW?
I like the ECW style a lot more. I've actually spoken about this a few times here and there. I'm a big fan of what I call the Jerry Lynn, Sabu, RVD style, where you use chairs, you use tables, but there's still wrestling going on. You see wrestling moves, you see wrestling sequences. I was never a fan of garbage wrestling where guys just whack each other with weapons. I hate that. I'm not a fan of that style at all. And when I had gotten into WCW, that was mainly what their hardcore matches was. You know, sometimes they hung the garbage cans from the posts filled with just a bunch of like pool cues and hockey sticks and random fighting memorabilia and stuff, miscellaneous stuff. And I had done matches like that there. When they put the hardcore title on me, my intent was to, and I spoke about it rather with the office about trying to transition my title run as more of an ECW-esque style hardcore wrestling where there was technical wrestling mixed with chairs and tables and an occasional weapon here or there. A few weeks into my run, I did a tag match. It was myself and Mike Awesome versus Bam Bam and Reno. And I had done an Asai moonsault. Bam Bam missed the catch. I hit the floor and I tore my abdominal muscle. And for people that don't know, it's one of the most painful injuries to get because if you lift up your knees or your hips, it hurts. To put your pants on hurts. To bend your leg to put your socks or shoes on kills. And they had just put in a hardcore title on me. It was a huge opportunity. So I did not report the injury at all because it would have taken it off me and this, that, and the other thing. So my plans to transition that hardcore style into a more ECW style got put on hold because it's actually a huge blessing in disguise because I actually had to do garbage wrestling and I was able to effectively do that style because I didn't have to do a lot of running around. It was just me lifting up objects and whacking people with them. And I was able to work through that injury by doing that, what I call it's a very unathletic and, not jumping and running around style. So that's not my favorite style. I hope that again, it's like ADD is all over the place. The WCW style was more of that simple garbage wrestling style. I wanted to change it, but thank God that's the style it was because after I got hurt, I was able to keep performing, and no one was the wiser.
Oh, that's good that there was able to be some kind of transition there. Before somebody, it always looked like the WCW version was, just presented more slickly.
Yeah.
Also, and the ECW was just like, I mean, you believed it in both cases, but in both instances, but ECW was just, it looked more just like a real fight.
It looked real and raw. Yep.
Real and raw. And, and not everybody could pull that off.
Yep.
Well put, Steve. Yeah, honestly, that's pretty. Yeah, like there's just the differences between the two companies, and like
I hate garbage wrestling. I hate garbage wrestling. It's I had to do it, but that I don't like that style of hardcore at all. Anybody could do that.
Called garbage wrestling before. Maybe but I agree with
like
that terminology, to be honest with you. So watching, I remember my brother waking me up at 2 a.m. He's like, you need to watch this. And literally, he's like, this is not Dad's wrestling. And made me watch ECW at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so crazy. But kind of watching to protect each other. Make sure we're going to maybe do something crazy, but I'm going to protect you. Very different.
Yeah.
Well, it's a lot. I feel like a lot of it is too the difference between the financial backing of WCW with TBS and everything, versus more of a grassroots, trying to make your name for yourself, more of an
absolutely. Yep.
Right? But yeah, before we let you go here, Crowbar, I guess
kept you so much.
I know.
Guys, you're all good, man. You're all good.
This has absolutely been a blast. Where can everybody find you?
Again, I really, as far as wrestling goes, I use mainly Twitter, or now it's called X, whatever it's called, at WCW Crowbar. I have an Instagram account. I very rarely go on because I just don't have time to do both. I don't have somebody doing my social media stuff. So most of my wrestling stuff you can find on at WCW Crowbar, and that's really the best, the best place to check.
Awesome. Well, again, pleasure was ours here. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers to you.
Next week in Rutherford, April 26th at the Williams Center.
Exactly.
Me and Gangrel.
I have a couple. You have the 26th in the Rutherford, and then you're going to be at what they're calling it WrestleCon, right, in Morristown.
Yes. Yes, and that will be right now. It's scheduled to be a steel cage match between me and, pulling back the curtain, my brother from another mother, Daniel Morrison, who is formerly known as Danny Doring. I love this guy, and when we work each other, we lay it into each because it's just fun.
He's a Jersey guy too, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yep.
Yes,
around the Lake Edison,
Battle of New Jersey.
Yes.
Well, Crowbar, listen, as now the first official guest of the Nick Club Wrestling Happy Hour, you have to.
I love it.
You have to win. There's a lot of winners on you now.
And I was here with coffee now.
Cheers.
Not exactly the happy hour, but my happy hour will start when I go home.
Well, cheers to that. Best of luck, and again, pleasure as always.
Cheers.
Thank you guys. A lot of fun. Great talking to you guys.
Thank you.
Cheers, ladies and gentlemen. Crowbar.